Hey guys, and welcome to the Movie-Club Emporium. This is our July Live Hangout. I am Jason,
And I'm Nick.
and we finally got all the bugs worked out for this particular stream because the internet falls apart so often. But no, we're excited because this is a topic. This month's topic is one I think uh I will say honestly surprised me by how much fun I had with it. And we're talking animals from hell. Now, you may be asking yourself, why animals from hell? Well, here's the fun thing. We also have a YouTube channel where we do weekly movie reviews. And on a particular review, a viewer commented, "Hey, you should do a blank from hell live stream." It was on one of our previous live streams I had posted up because all these live streams, once they end here, they only stay on Twitch for so long. So we record them, wait a few weeks or until I'm in the middle of the night and I remember, oh god, I gotta put that online. And we put it up over on our YouTube channel. And they were like, "Hey, doing a blank from hell." And I was like, "Well, we'd already done. I think they wanted us originally to talk about like thriller noir esque blank from hell movies." And I was like, "Well, we kind of did that long ago, and we could do again with the our forgotten '90s thriller live we did way back on the Book of Faces." And we had kind of talked about doing an animal month, so here we are, animals from hell. So if you want to possibly have say in something we talk about, feel free to comment. Let's build that engagement. Let's talk about things together. With that being said, again, uh, we do this here on Twitch every month, and YouTube is every week. So check both those out. Subscribe, ring the bell, click the icon, whatever you got to do, so you don't forget. And with that, I will say, how are you doing this month, sir?
Oh, I've been sick for about a week fighting a vicious summer cold. So I'm not exactly on my A game. Um, Having to work through it, and I was thinking, okay, I'm here on my weekend. This is the last of my weekend. I'll be able to, you know, get over it. And I'm rolling into my next work week, still not feeling great.
Ooh.
So I'm a little out of it. That's why. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I had to completely reset my computer. Um, and I went to go log on back to our Discord, and I logged on to the wrong Discord because, unbeknownst to me, I have two of those. And I thought Discord just erased every setting I ever had. No. So get it figured out. We haven't had a technical issue like that since the days of Facebook. So hopefully we can avoid those again. But it was just a perfect combination of things that went wrong, which led to us starting a little late. Everyone who's with us, I appreciate it. This is how it normally goes, and hopefully we'll avoid this in the future. But moving on to this genre, this is such a massive genre, which has been going on for a long time and will continue on long into the future. It's had many boom periods. There were a ton of these back in the 70s where we had this boom of like ecological horror movies of like, oh man, what happened if the animals turned on us? And there were so many of them, a lot of them bad, some of them good. We got another spurt of them back in the 90s. A lot of really great ones that some weren't necessarily even horror movies, but a lot of action movies involving bears and lions and all sorts of things. And then you go back into the 50s, you had animals that had been exposed to radioactivity and became huge or enraged or terrifying. We had a lot of material to draw from. And in researching for this, I discovered that I have only watched a fraction of the movies in this genre, and there are so much more. I went back and started watching a few more, and I found one that I liked. It didn't quite make my list, but it'll bear mentioning. And we could do a lot of shows about this in the future where we reviewed various movies, and we could dedicate 3 shows a year to this and still never come close to hitting all of them. Just head on over to Tubi and type in, you know, while I was watching, looking for the movie we're going to review this episode, because we're going to doing a review and our top 10 list. I just the massive library available of mostly horrible looking animal attack movies on Tubi is impressive. All available free of charge, and man, Tubi's such a treasure trove, especially for all sorts of cult and genre films.
Unless you're talking about the movie we're going to talk about later. Um, yeah, I realized making my list, I was like, man, I was really dialed into this in like a certain decade, with a few spatterings from a couple other decades, but just realizing how much we were into just animal attack movies in the 90s. But then also thinking back, well, yeah, because that was the same time as like you were getting like all those weird like Fox specials were like when animals attack, when bears go too far, like those weird like hard copy esque uh reality Mondo films that Fox was doing to get people to watch their channel. So there will be a lot of hidden gems, even hidden gems in that decade that I was like, we grew up with this movie, having never watched it. I watched it and it instantly made this list. So I'm excited to talk about some wild movies. Also, don't feel bad about publicly embarrassingly exposing your second Discord family to the rest of us. It's okay. Uh
Yes, I'll have to carry that shame with me, like I do for the shame for some of my movies on this list, which well, nope, unashamedly love.
well, so I was all in top 10, and then Nick here was like, "Let's review this movie." And I was like, "Okay, this could be fun cuz while I will say the first of this movies did not make my list. I have seen it, and it's pretty great for what it is. So I was like, okay, sure, why not? And then I didn't know a lot about this movie at the time. I pull it up, I see who's starring in the movie, and I'm like, oh wow, why haven't I ever heard of this movie? And then you made me watch this piece of shit. So I guess we'll jump into it. We'll see how if maybe my outlook changes as we go as we talk about this movie. Uh, we're talking about Grizzly 2 Revenge, also was known as Grizzly 2 The Concert. This is a movie that was made in 1983 and released in 2021. And you know what? I will let you take it from there.
Okay, so this movie has some history behind it. In the mid 70s, there was an eco horror animal attack movie named Grizzly that came out, which was a pretty big hit. It made a ton of profit off of a pretty small budget. It's about a grizzly going around a national park, killing people. Very simple premise. They got a trained bear and got creative with camera angles and made the thing look 20 feet tall. They fight it. Spoiler alert, it ends with a rocket launcher. Anywho, I thought, okay, we need to revisit this again because there's still money left in this. Well, I wasn't able to get a clear answer as to if this was originally intended to be a sequel, because I heard it was originally called Predator. Then somebody had the idea, hey, let's call it Grizzly 2 and cash in on a movie that had been a hit. Well, they got this movie going. Day one of production, the producer quit. They ended up getting roughly 70 to 80% of this movie finished on a smaller budget than they intended to. They didn't get all of the footage completed. They didn't get all the shots they needed. But then the movie was shelved for the next 37 7 years. Oh, in the interim, a very rough cut of this on VHS has been making the convention circuit, and somebody had the idea, okay, what if we complete this movie, edit it together, fill in the gaps, and release it, this lost horror movie? And I can understand why. There's a lot of people in this movie. Billed are Laura Dern, George Clooney, and Charlie Sheen. And yes, they are in fact in this movie for less than 2 minutes before they get brutally killed. Uh, pardon me with the names, the woman who played Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, playing a character named Dragon, she's kind of the one of the bad guys in this. Uh, the actor, and again, I'm referencing other I got to look up their names. The actor who played Peter Pettigrew in the Harry Potter movie shows up in a cameo role. So the various people show up in this movie in bit parts before they got famous because so I could definitely understand why they want to complete this and why they want to put this out in the world. And go on Tubi right now and watch the trailer. It makes this movie look awesome. Of course, the reality is this movie is a rough, unfinished hunk of shit that they finished by putting in random stock footage and random, completely unrelated modern concert footage. Because we'll give you a down low on the plot of this movie, what little there is. Giant grizzly has her bear cub killed by poachers. She's mad. So she decides to go on a rampage. Sort of. She turned into much of a rampage. Meanwhile, there's a huge new wave concert coming to this national park, which is going to attract 80 to 100,000 people. Which, yes, because if I want a new wave concert, I want to put it in a remote national park. So you have all these groups trying to catch the poachers and stop this bear from attacking the concert. You have John Reese Davies
Oh,
himself,
oh.
from Gimli from Lord of the Rings, playing a ridiculous French poacher. He's just like in the Davy Crockett rawhide jacket and has necklaces and feathers and just they wrote this role for somebody else and somehow they got John Reese Davies.
He looks like fatter Steven Seagal from On Deadly Ground in this fucking jacket. And he is
That is
co-starring with this mullet he has in this movie.
it's his mullet is magnificent. John Reese Davies and just how he is by far the most entertaining part of this movie. Anyway, it all culminates in, of course, a giant bear or pretty much a head of a bear, like the paper mache bear head they mocked up, sort of attacking this concert in such an anticlimactic fashion. You could tell the ending where the bear actually comes in and does a rampage was one of the things, of course, they did not finish at all, which is the most crucial part of making this movie work. Jason, I've got to apologize. I am sorry. I knew this movie was uncompleted. I knew this movie they kind of had to piece it together. The, it, I think watching it without the things they threw in there would make it make as much sense as anything. It doesn't it doesn't work. It has you think giant bear attacking a concert. That alone, hey, yes. Sign me up. That could make for some awesome wild attack scenes and chaos and pandemonium. And it would have. But in this unfinished guys, it doesn't at all. At one point, my wife came out and asked me, "Are you watching a musical?" Because it cuts to music scenes so much of some of the hideous 80s new wave bands they could possibly dig up. I think there's a few big names among them, but most of these bands are bad. Like really bad. Or at least they're terrible songs they're playing. I don't know. This movie is bad, and I have a hard time like trying to be too critical of it because it's not a finished movie. this
No,
one would have been fine if they had left it buried.
so as somebody who watches and talks about movies on the internet, there are certain creators I follow, and one name that comes up in a lot of these people who watch these so bad it's good movies is Neil Breen. Now, I've never sat down and watched a Neil Breen movie, mostly because I don't hate myself. But I feel like if you would like kind of a Neil Breen movie that's like an hour and a half shorter than a Neil Breen movie and a lot less has to do with what the government's doing to you, you can watch this because I feel like both this and that those Neil Breen movies have stock footage on lock. My favorite part of this movie, and yeah, the new wave was terrible, which makes me mad because I enjoy a good new wave. Let's
I
go.
love new wave.
Um,
Love new wave. One of my
is
favorite genres.
is the ending where we talk about there's this big fence that we're electrifying at concert for reasons, and that's kind of how we kill the bear. Is we make it grab an electric fence and then turn that fence on, and so to show that the bear is being cooked by the electric fence, it shows a close up of the shark mouth being electrocuted from Jaws 2. And I was like, hey, that's from Jaws 2. I like that movie.
And then it just abruptly ends. It just like, nope, that's it. It's like, wait, what?
With the
It's
evil character, yeah, it's Nurse Ratchet, something Fletcher? Fletcher?
Dra I can't remember her name, but her character's name is Dragon or something
Yeah.
like that.
And they're like, "Was that part of the show?" And she's like, "Yep." And then the movie just ends.
That's it. It ends. There's so little of substance to this movie because they obviously knocked out all the easy stuff first. They got that knocked out. Then they had no money, no producer, and they're like, okay, well, guess that's it. And you know, never went back. This is one of those. I love a good animal attack movie that's so bad it's good. I have those on my list.
Oh yeah.
This is the one of them. This movie is an absolute train wreck, but a boring train wreck. You can stand to just walk away from it that's going on. It's
Hon-
awful. It's like Grizzly, not a classic movie by any stretch, in my opinion. It is Citizen Kane compared to this hunk of shit.
Honestly, if for all of you watching, please don't watch the movie, but do go to YouTube, watch the minute and 21 trailer, and just pretend that's the whole movie, and you're golden. Then
Man,
it's awesome.
the trailer looks killer, and it looks like a musical extravaganza with fallings and explosions and electrocutions and action, and that's not it.
There is a scene where John Rhys Davies tries to grapple hook his way up the back of a giant bear, only to be
Yes.
instantly thrown off and murdered.
Yes. You're like, well, at least that's interesting, and then it's over
Yeah.
instantly because he try something happens with his gun, and he has a tomahawk and a knife, and decides to jump on the back of the bear. You're like, okay, that's something he decided to do. He gets bucked off and impaled. That's it. And it's just all this interspersed with just boring stock footage, boring concert footage. This is calling this movie half baked would be an insult. It's not half baked. It hasn't gone in the oven yet, but they threw it in front of us and told us to eat it.
Yeah.
But
If
I'm
if you
sorry.
if
I thought this would be a fun, a fun movie to review. I liked some of the history behind it. I was wrong. It's terrible. Don't watch it.
if you want to watch a movie that's like, oh, they found this lost film from the 70s or 80s and then like took time to kind of make it make enough sense to put it out there for a fun like drinking night, watch either Dangerous Men, which I believe was, if it's not the same Iranian guy who made Samurai Cop, it's another equally terrible movie maker, Iranian man, and it involves a woman hiding a knife between her butt cheeks, like, and that's one of the highlights of the movie. Um, or the Vinegar Syndrome put out New York Ninja. which was this lost ninja film from the 80s, just a ninja in New York, and there was no audio recorded, so they got a bunch of like aged out action stars to voice new dialogue for this 1980s karate movie.
That sounds great.
Those are fun. This was not.
Fun fact, this movie currently has an 8% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's too high.
I wanna meet the person, people, group, sentient bag of dirty towels that decided to give this a positive review because I am fascinated.
You know what?
I watched Grizzly 2.
Since I'm making this part of my like lore as we do these, this movie has an 8%, and yet Highlander 2: The Quickening has a 0%. And that movie has so much more going for it
It's
than Grizzly 2.
infinitely better. It's like every Back to the Future movie rolled into one in terms of quality compared to Grizzly 2. And Highlander 2 is a bananas stupid movie. I love it anyway, I don't care.
So yeah, I was like, oh man, this is whew. It'll be fun to talk about, but it was not fun to watch.
Oh, no. No, my the you could feel the I could feel the joy leaving my body as the first 10 minutes of this movie passed. It was too much.
Amber was smart because
So
I
let's
showed her
talk
the trailer and she was like, "That looks hilarious." I was like, "You're gonna watch it with me?" She goes, "No," and then she left.
I almost made my wife watch it with me, and I'm glad I didn't because I would have never heard the end of it if I had.
All
We can
right.
move on. We can move on to better stuff, to movies we at least enjoyed. Some are quality, some aren't, but movies we love nonetheless, unlike Grizzly 2.
So,
I'm gonna be angry about this movie for a long time.
yeah. Well, we've got some more fun stuff to talk about. So let's start. Let's start with some honorable mentions. You said you had one, or do you have a
What's
couple?
that?
How many honorable mentions do you have?
I wrote down I wrote down 5, and that's excessive, but
Well, I have three. So if we want to kind of chunk through some of these here first, and then we'll jump into our list. Uh, you want to start off there with since you're the order of the numbers?
yes, number 1 of my honorable mentions was an odd movie, from the early 2000s, which I honestly thought was pretty well done, and was a lot of the success of this movie has to do with a great casting with Crispin Glover, and it's the remake of Willard. Um, Socially dysfunctional man, is kind of an odd guy, played well by Crispin Glover, learns he can communicate with rats and uses rats to get revenge on people, including his boss, played by Arlie Ermy. It movie that came and went without much fanfare, and it's kind of been forgotten. I actually think it's a really solid movie. I've never seen the original, but I think Willard's definitely one that's worth watching and checking out. It's something a little different in the animal attack genre.
Yeah, that movie is like criminally underrated because I remember when it coming out and there was like a huge like build to it, and it just kind of came out. We loved it, and then it just kind of in the
Yes,
wind. Like it's like almost a lost film at this point. But no, it's really great. Crispin Glover is perfect for it. Um, the rat stuff is gnarly. Uh, I've never seen the first one. Um, but I've heard Ben several times. um, I do want to address in the chat just so we're clear. When we were putting this list together, Nick and I said no mythical animal. So like, cause I when I first thought of this list, my one of the movies, just full disclosure, was like, "Ooh, this will give me a reason to rewatch Q the Winged Serpent." And I was like, "No, let's do real animals." So no Qs, no Jurassic Parks, no Graboids. We went real animals.
it could be
So there would be no Howard the Duck either. Sorry.
giant animals, uh, mutant animals, but they had to be like animals based in reality. No dinosaurs, which even though yes, dinosaurs existed, I feel the need to say that these days.
I
Um,
live in Oklahoma. Yeah, let me Definitely put that out. Dinosaurs existed.
No dinosaurs, no cryptids, no aliens. Um, tried it had to be based on an animal that's lived in the last 10,000 years. We try to, like, focus them in a little bit so we can narrow it down, and that helps. And there are a lot of, those other things. We'll do episodes on straight up monster movies and aliens and all that other stuff, but straight up animals this time.
All right, so I'll start with one that's honestly maybe the oldest one on my full list. Um, and I remember never hearing of it until it was one night on the last drive-in with Joe Bob, and they were doing an animal um series, but they showed a trailer for this movie, and it looked incredible. So I went and found it on, I think it's on Prime, but it's Day of the Animals from 1971 or 77. I apologize. Um, and it's this weird. It's one is very much eco forward. It's like we've upset the ozone so much that animals that are above a certain elevation become hostile to man. And it just so happens that there's this group up there and like hiking in the forest and stuff when this happens. They're being attacked by everything. It's a fun animal movie, but also it has a 1977 Leslie Nielsen shirtless, like fighting hawks and cougars and stuff. So it's kind of a good time. But very much kind of in this, like you were saying, in the same vein of like Grizzly, very much like Jaws came out, and so we were doing kind of everything. And this movie is fun because it doesn't hone in on just one creature. Like you get a lot of different animals uh attacking this group of hikers. And again, shirtless Leslie Nielsen just fighting a cougar with a big stick. It's kind of awesome.
Hey, another of my honorable mention was a movie. It's a great movie to ruin your day. I don't think most people went into this movie expecting such a downer, and it got kind of branded it as a Jaws ripoff, and I think that's a stretch to call this Jaws ripoff. It's called Orca, and I believe it's from 77 or 78. Um, Richard Harrison plays this whaling captain who kills the mate of this killer whale. This killer whale goes on a mission for vengeance to get this guy, and it is this like brutal, nasty on-screen rivalry between this human and this killer whale, and it actually has a pretty cool effect, and it gets pretty harsh at times. If we ever do a Jaws ripoff, even though I think it's a stretch to call it one, I we need to review Orca.
I 100% agree because it just missed my list. This is yeah. I was just like, it's not so much a Jaws ripoff as it is like the John Wick of the sea.
Yes.
Because you find out his mate was pregnant, and so he's like avenging their deaths, and he's just tracking Dumbledore to like the edges of the earth, and just kill him,
And
and
that
it's awesome.
and the ending is just like, man, the movie goes so hard, you can't help but admire it. Also has some fantastic poster art. Yeah, well, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do a Jaws rip off or Jaws adjacent movie episodes, and we're gonna review Orca so we can get its full due. Um,
Um, so another one I had was one from 1988, and we honestly do an episode um on this director who is a master of one particular section of horror, and every he has hits outside of that, but some movies are weird, especially his run in the 80s. And so you could almost do like a whole episode about movies that aren't tied to his legacy, and that's George Romero's Monkey Shines. Because what a wild movie of just being like, hey, this this guy's in a horrible accident. He's now basically a paraplegic. And so his friend is like, what if I inject this little monkey with some super brain serum so he can become your little helper? He'll be your hands, this little monkey. And then him and the monkey form like a psychic bond, and the monkey's jealous and starts killing people. that make this guy mad, and he gets weird monkey teeth, and I mean, it leads to the image of like a small monkey carrying around a straight razor, which is terrifying. But it's just so weird, especially when you think of like this is George Romero's like the king of the zombies. You know, he has Day of the Dead. You have Creep Show in the '80s. Then things get weird, and it in the '80s for his weird in the '80s. He's kind of capped off with this weird little monkey movie.
That's one I own Monkey Shines. I remember it so much seeing in the video stores growing up,
Oh, that cover's
but
iconic.
it is, but I've still never seen it. Um, I gotta remedy that because I've actually heard it's a pretty solid movie. My third honorable mention is The Prophecy, or not The Prophecy, Prophecy from 1979, and not the movie about angels, starring Christopher Walken from the mid '90s. Prophecy is another 70s eco horror movie about this mutant bear that's rampaging through the wilderness. And these people who are out to stop it. It's a pretty effective monster movie and horror movie. It makes you think about the ecological ramifications. It also has an awesome ending. Uh, didn't quite make my cutoff. I went, but it was close. It was close. I heavily considered throwing it on my list. I'll just throw my other two out there real quick without much explanation. Italian movie from 1989 called Killer Crocodile. Not quite made the list, but it's enjoyable, and I was impressed by how much it shows the creature. And another one my daughter and I watched a while back, I really enjoyed it, was Shark Night 3D from about 2011. It's a cheesy shark movie about a bunch of different types of sharks getting loose in a lake, and antics ensue. Not great, but a fun movie.
So my last one is also a shark movie, and we also made the rule where it was just like, all right, no mythical cryptid creatures. Also, despite the T-shirt, like we're not going to talk about like you. There's nothing that you or I could say about Jaws that hasn't been said, and it's what almost 50 years now. So Jaws was kind of off the table. However, honestly, a Jaws sequel that I've seen more than any of them, including the original, because it was on TBS. It felt like every Sunday. Um, and while it some call it the worst in the Jaws franchise, I have an unironic love for this movie, and it's Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh my
Um,
god.
I do. As a sequel to Jaws, it's terrible. But if you look at it as this old woman who believes she is cyclically linked to a shark, and so she goes to the Caribbean, and the shark follows her because it's out for revenge for its family by murdering hers. You have that's like story A. Story B is Michael Caine flies an airplane and is constantly trying to bang this old lady. And then the C plot is Mario Van Peebles' atrocious Jamaican accent. The shark roars like a lion. The scene on the banana boat is awesome. This is a fun, dumb shark movie, and I have seen it at least 30 times on television, and I kind of love it.
Dumb is right. The movie is completely nonsensical. Uh, One of my favorite stories to come out of it, Michael Caine's in it because somehow they got him to be in it. And somebody I've been criticizing him about taking a role in that movie. He's like, it said something effective. I've seen Jaws. Jaws 4 might be terrible, but I've seen The House That Bought Me, and that house is magnificent.
Yep.
He got paid a ton of money to be in that dumbass movie, and no regrets. Michael Caine, what a baller. Uh, Jaws, you're saying Jaws 3, Jaws 3D, dumb movie, not great. It is definitely a step down. Jaws 4 is comically bad. It is so ludicrous and out there that it's just I they should have just tried to make it a straight up comedy because that's pretty much what it became anyway.
But when you think of all the Jaws sequels, so you think Jaws 2, 3, and 4, those three movies, which one's the most memorable?
I mean, you're not wrong.
So now that I've lost all credibility, I guess we can. What is going on? This chat's getting wild, you guys, and I love it.
Logan's drinking.
Nice. I'm drinking just water, sir. I was accused of blatant alcoholism, but this is just water. I promise. Certainly not what you guys are drinking. That's wild. All right, so let's jump into this top 10. You want to kick us off, or you want me to?
I'll kick us off. Yes, Logan, I am totally judging. No, I don't. It's your weekend, Logan. Kick back and enjoy the ride. So, I'm starting off my okay. The first several on my list are fun and ridiculous movies. Uh, no shame. A lot of these, I'm not going to try to claim that they're great movies, but they scratch that itch for a good animal attack movie. My number no one. Nope, number 10 is a really dumb, goofy movie from 1988 that is chock full of cliches and ridiculous creatures, but also chock full of some shockingly great gore and a lot of creepy crawlies. It's called Slugs from 1988. Oh, the whole usual something happens, some sort of pollution, contaminant, radiation happens, and affects the local slug population of this small town, and turns all these slugs into killers where they want to feast on human flesh. So a lot of these scenes revolve around people having slugs get the drop of them until all of a sudden they're covered up, getting eaten alive by these adorable, slimy little mollusks. What are slugs?
Yeah.
Anywho, um, which leads to some truly great scenes, including a scene where a pair of teens are rolling around in bed. Then one of them falls on the floor, and all of a sudden the entire room is full of man-eating slugs. Another great scene involves somebody going down to touch a slug, and it has a close up of the slug. The slug has a mouth and teeth and a tongue, and it bites the dude on the finger, which I'm no expert. Pretty sure slugs don't have human mouths, but what do I know? But one scene in particular, there are some parasites from a slug that wind up in some lettuce. This guy eats some, they get in him, and while eating dinner, he starts having a headache and slug blood flukes explode out of his face, and it is amazing. This movie's dumb. It's not a great movie, but this movie, however, is a fantastic time. It's a great movie to drink and watch or watch with a group of friends. If you need a cheesy animal attack movie to brighten up your day, Slugs is worth that. I love this movie.
And it has a killer cover.
It really does. It has one of those, the woman laying on the floor and the slug uh, scurrying away from her with a trail of blood behind it. It's great. It is stupid. It doesn't work as a serious movie, but man, is it fun.
So I'm like you. I was like, okay, I want to look at. I want to make a top 10, and I do have some serious movies on here, but some of these are just like, if I'm gonna sit down and be like, hey, it's Saturday. Hey, family, let's have some fun and let's watch some dumb animal attack movies. These are the ones I would recommend. Starting with this one, which is a movie that you and I looked at and made fun of 1,000 times in our local video store, but we never watched. We even went so far as to like take the lead actor of this movie and mock him
What you're gonna
incessantly
say?
to to our own joy in our own films. Uh, we're talking about 1999's Bats. So I mean, you'll recognize the cover. It was like it looked exactly like the cover of Arachnophobia, but the words "bats" was upside down because bats hang upside down. And we looked at it and never watched it. And it wasn't until this week where I was like, "I got some movies on my list. I don't know if they're gonna make it." Oh, hey, that's on Amazon for free. I'll sit down and watch it. I'm doing something else. I'll watch it, and it rocketed to the list. So this is 1999, and this is the most 1999 edited movie that ever 1999. Like it's edited like the House on a Haunted Hill remake. Um, Especially the first like kill where this couple is making out in this car and the bats attack it. It's just all this insanity. Quick cut. Movie stars Lou Diamond Phillips doing this god awful country accent because it takes place in South Texas. And I just had to look up. I was like, well, he was in Young Guns. Is he from the South? And he was in La Bamba. Like, no, he was born in the Philippines. But by God, let me tell you what, Lou Diamond Phillips talking like a real cowboy in this movie. Uh, you have him and you have Dina Meyer from the Saw franchise and Starship Troopers. And she is a bat expert. You have Leon, aka the one of the guys from Cool Runnings, and he's our cool, funny black character in this movie. And he is fantastic. And then Bob Gunton, who is the evil warden in the Shawshank Redemption. He's the guy who he brought these two bats. So the plot is he brings these two bats to our country. They're big giant bats, and he makes them super smart and super intelligent and makes them omnivorous and essentially is making weapons for the government, and they get out and infect, but their bite on other bats infects other bats to make them omnivorous too. And so the whole movie you're just like, well, okay, so he's the bad guy. He's our human bad guy. And they're all like, I cannot, you just wait, Bob Gunton. You wait till that third act when you suddenly become the bad guy. And he does. Spoilers. But there are a lot of puppets, so you're getting a lot of close up puppeted bats that look awesome. Terribly, terribly awesome. And then some awful CG bats. I was blown away though because this movie's PG-13 and it is gory as hell. Like there's a scene where we find our first victim and that they're showing it to to Dina Meyer's character. And they removed the sheet off of the body and like its jaw and neck is gone, and then like from its collarbone down the entire like chest and stomach has been eaten out of this thing, and they just show it. And you're just watching people get their throats ripped out left and right in this movie. Uh, the whole town gets attacked by bats at one point, and we're hiding in the movie theater that's playing Nosferatu because it's on the nose. Uh, the movie has a wild ending involving a giant Mr. Freeze as freeze cannon and like bombers with like missiles headed toward the to blow this small Texas town off the map. I cannot believe how much fun this movie was for something we only made fun of and never watched in high school. It's a blast.
Meant to get around to watching this for this episode, and I didn't because I'd heard it's one of those. It got blasted when it was released, but it's gotten more of a cult following since. Um, so originally this movie was PG-13. Interestingly enough, I remember distinctly in the years following this movie getting released on video and DVD, every version I found was the R-rated or unrated version of this. Because I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies back in high school, middle school, so I was always on the lookout for PG-13 horror movies, and I was trying to find this one. I could never find a PG-13 version of it. I think most of the versions that are out in circulation now are, in fact, the R or unrated cut. I
Which is
gotta get
funny
around to
because
watching that.
it says if you go to Amazon, it says PG-13. Or no,
Yeah,
I think maybe it said R. I think it said PG-13 because I was like, oh, really PG-13? Okay, PG-13. And then even when Amber came in, I was like, this movie's going hard for a PG-13. So yeah, maybe they just had the wrong cut, but in that case, it was amply gory, even with the R, because there's no language in it, so it's definitely super gory, super fun.
um,
No boobs. Sorry, Logan. No boobs.
um, there's actually been several bat-based horror movies over the years. That's another one that might be worth looking into for us at some point. This is just one of the more prolific ones. And number 9 is directed by a pretty notable director. And I love it when I go into a movie and it delivers on exactly what it's promising. I'm a sucker for 3D movies. I love throwing on the glasses, going to the theater, and seeing stuff pop out at me on screen. In 2010, I was treated to a wonderful movie which threw severed body parts, including Jerry O'Connell's penis, at me in 3D. It was Piranha 3D, directed by Alexander Aja from 2010. Um, it's of course a remake of a Roger Corman movie, a Roger Corman produced movie from the late 70s. Uh, piranhas are these in this movie. It's got a different plot. In the original movie, they were like a military project, and this one, it's an earthquake happens, and a bunch of prehistoric piranhas get unleashed on the small lake right before spring break, and antics ensue. And like the last almost hour of the movie is just constant piranhas eating people and crazy gore. And yes, at one point, Jerry O'Connell plays somebody who's like a Girls Gone Wild type producer guy, and he gets eaten. And yep, you see his penis in 3D. So that's pretty notable for this movie, and something that gets brought up a lot when people are talking about this movie. But it's fun. It's a fun, ridiculous good time. The effects are pretty decent. It's getting past the CGI. It's fun. You get Christopher Lloyd in it, Bing Rames, Richard Dreyfuss, Elizabeth Shue. You can see Eli Roth eating, which I will pay a pretty good admission to see. So it it's a ridiculous boob-filled animal attack movie. It's absurd. It's not remotely supposed to be remotely taken seriously, and you don't. Another one, kind of like it has kind of like a movie I mentioned earlier, has a dynamite ending. It's a fun B movie and a well executed one. And big fan of Alexander Aja. I really like his work. But yeah, Piranha 3D. I've not watched it at home. Something tells me it doesn't not quite as memorable as it was in the theater in 3D, but worth watching.
I I love the movie, and honestly, you could go either Piranha because they're both fun in their own ways. Uh, Joe Dante was the first one, and so I know you're getting dragged in the comments, but I'll allow because it's a remake of a movie. They just changed the origin of the Piranha, and so I'll we'll let that one count because yeah, this movie is fun. I did not see it in the theater. That would have been a blast. But I remember that's one of the first movies when we here in Weatherford got a Redbox. I was like, oh, let's Redbox it, and was blown away by how much nudity and just outright amazing gore is in it. It's so much fun. I never did see Piranha 3 Double D, although my father-in-law talks about it a lot, or they did this last weekend. So I may have to get him on here and tell us how but what goes on in that sequel. But which I know Ving Rhames spoilers is eaten in this movie and then he shows up in the next movie, which is fine because he did the same thing in that Dawn of the Dead remake and the Day of the Dead remake. But no, this movie's a lot of fun, and I will definitely be talking about Alexandra Aja here in a little bit. All right, my number 9. Uh, we're still stuck in the year 1999 because again, like I said, a lot of these movies were this is what was happening, and I'm not really sure what led to it in the late 90s. But looking back at it, like there were a lot. um, this one though is one I remember renting tons of times. Um, and I absolutely still love it, and it's Lake Placid. Um, and I think for this one, it this one has more of a Tremors vibe than say something like Bats does. Uh, I mean, still nothing quite like Tremors because there's nothing quite like Tremors. But You have the stellar cast: Bill Pullman, Bridget Fonda. Kind of like this. Now it was kind of my first introduction to Brendan Gleeson. It was like this followed by 28 Days Later. So I got to see two sides of how great an actor he is. And it's just a big or big crocodile, alligator, which one? And in a lake in like Maine. The Betty White stuff in that movie is so much fun because yeah, growing up, my grandmother watched the Golden Girls religiously, so I only knew Betty White from that. And so I was like, oh, it's the old lady from the Golden Girls. And then she calls somebody a cocksucker. And I was just like, for my like teenage brain was just uh it's super fun. It still holds up. Um some of the CG doesn't hold up as much. Here's what blows me away about Lake Placid. So I've only seen the first one. And I say that because there are 6 Lake Placid movies. So somehow this movie,
Six.
there are 6 of them in total if you count the like Anaconda versus Lake Placid or whatever it's called. Um I looked up on IMDb and was just floored. So somehow, yeah, I've only seen the first one and it's fun. That's why it made my list. So I wouldn't probably recommend the other 5. But if you remember this from growing up, then go back and revisit it because it is still a lot of fun.
It's been a long time since I've seen Lake Placid. Didn't quite make my cutoff, but it's a fun movie, and Betty White and Oliver Platt are just great in it. It's a fun one, definitely worth revisiting. I apologize to anyone listening for having issues with my audio. My microphone I usually used is having issues, so I had to substitute this headset, and yeah, it may not be up to snuff. I'll get that fixed before next time. Moving on, uh, years ago, some friends and I did a podcast where we reviewed all manner of cult movies. We called ourselves the Cult Movie Cabal. One movie that we reviewed, we talked about quite a bit because we referenced something called the Ninja Cockroach Cat scene. And I'll tell you, the movie's called The Nest. I believe it's made from sometime in the mid '80s, and it's about mutant cockroaches laying siege to this town. I believe it's on a island, and the gung ho sheriff who has to stop it. Interestingly enough, one of the things the cockroaches can do is they can like combine and mimic creatures' appearances, and like even kind of make humanoid looking forms out of them. But they're like, of course, man eating, and they'll eat anything in their path and whatnot. Some of the ideas from this movie, man, Guillermo del Toro had to see this before he made Mimic. There's just a few too many uh, similarities for to be like there's got to be he had to get some ideas from this. Um, but it's a really fun, gross out bug movie, and I like me some gross out fun bug movies. I It's pretty low budget. Nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy. But if you want a little gem from the '80s and you want to be creeped out, The Nest is very much worth watching. And yes, there's a crazy scene involving a cockroach cat, which does all sorts of like flips and stuff in this one scene. It's wonderful. I I believe this is another one. I think Roger Corman actually had some involvement in the making of this movie too. Uh, Speaking of Mimic, I almost included Mimic on this list, but I figured that was a little too close to being cryptid and some other type of monster, so I included the Nest instead.
I've not seen the Nest, but I will say this in solidarity of the chat. I know you've seen the Kevin Smith movies. We all like to say that Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms. If we're gonna talk about a '90s Miramax movie, Mimic is the bomb because that movie rules.
Oh, it's great. Mimic is great.
Oh, my number 8 is a movie that I don't know where I stumbled upon it. But again, the cover of this movie was everywhere when we were kids. Um, Honestly, this movie's only crime, well, one of its only crimes is that it doesn't live up to the cover it gives you. Uh, but this is like one of those early, uh, like Ashton showing Ashton a horror movie type situation because, ironically, if enough, my number 8 was the episode of our podcast we did, um, in like 2019, and that is 1993's Man's Best Friend. Uh, so if you know this cover, it looks like Lance Hendrickson is fighting a Terminator dog. That is not the case. It's just a genetically
Nope.
enhanced dog. But even more than that dog, Lance Henderson is fighting his way out of the world's biggest denim jacket in this movie. And he has this terrible his bleach blonde job. And it's essentially about a big, I don't know if it's not a Rottweiler. It's like a Mastiff, I think, maybe.
I believe it is a Tibetan Mastiff,
Okay. And
which is
it,
a massive dog.
Ali Sheedy, because host Brat Pack was not kind to her, sadly, because she's kind of great in this movie. She's a expose reporter reporting on this animal cruelty lab. She finds this dog Mac. She takes it home with her. It becomes super protective, so much so that it will kill anyone that tries to take him away from her, including her fiance who doesn't like him. That involves cutting the brakes on her fiance's car. There's a scene where it tries to kill these boys because she yells at the boy for going into her house when he wasn't invited. There's a scene that implies this giant mastiff dog uh, takes advantage of the poodle next door violently while the song Puppy Love plays. Um, there's also a scene where a giant puppet dog head eats a cat whole. This movie is awesome. Um, but yeah, it's and then Lance Henderson's like, I want my dog back. I have to kill it because it's trying to kill me now, and it's your classic. Oh no, I shouldn't have done the thing to make the monster animal way smarter than it should be. But it's super early '90s. It's got the like overly Chicago Italian actor. Oh, his name completely escapes me. He's in Die Hard 2. It's not Dennis Franz. Uh, you'd know him if you recognize him. And there's like these two bumbling dog catchers that are in the movie, and this dog sets a trap for them in a garage where they go into the garage on a decoy. The garage door starts shutting, and the dog's sitting there as if to say, "Now let's have some fun." Like it's just nuts. It also pees acid. So if you're looking for a dumb,
Yes.
monstrous animal movie, this is a lot of fun. It's so stupid, but it was a blast. Ashton loved it. Um, it's so funny. It's so funny, but kind of awesome.
Yeah. I love it's just like they gave that dog so many abilities because they combined his genes from like Siberian tigers and chameleons and all these different things. Like the dog can literally bend light. It can camouflage itself like a chameleon in one scene. It's got retractable claws. I don't know what animal they got the acid pee from, but I am here for it. It's dumb. It is a colossally dumb movie, but it's also a very fun movie, and they went for it. My number 7 was a movie that was meant to be dumb and goofy. It's a movie that I went to go see twice in theaters, actually. Once in Altus and once while I was on vacation with my parents because they wanted to go see Rain of Fire, and I would have rather go see Eight-Legged Freaks twice instead of Rain of Fire twice because Eight-Legged Freaks is a really fun movie. Hey, Rain of Fire could have done more with the premise. That's all I'm saying. Eight-Legged Freaks, giant spiders attacking a desert town. And who do you have to defend you? David Arquette. It's fun. It's goofy. If you hate spiders, you'll probably hate this movie. Gave a lot of people the creeps, but there's a chase scene involving dirt bikes and giant spiders. There's a siege of a mall. Uh, some scenes down in a mine. It's a lot of fun. It's supposed to harken back to the creature features of the 1950s, and I think it does it well, but with a great sense of humor. Um, it's a parody movie, basically. It's just meant to be there to have fun, to show some giant creatures on the screen, and I love it. There's not much to it, but it does what it set out to do. Kind of like Piranha 3D.
So my hatred of spiders is well noted. But I don't hate Eight-Legged Freak. I even owned it on DVD at one time because my justification for that is yes, I hate spiders. I hate them so much. But once spiders are the size of cars, it's like Shelob and the Harry Potter spider. Once they're that big, it's whatever. It's game over no matter what happens. So I'm here for it. It's when the little ones can get you where you're not, like arachnophobia, the spider in the popcorn, like that's terrifying. You know, Dodge minivan comes rolling here with 8 legs and eats me. Whatever. I guess I had it coming. So it is a fun movie. It definitely has a tone of movies that I kind of missed. Movies like this, movies like that came along later, like maybe a little bit like Evolution, more like Slither, like just kind of a fun, really oozy creature feature movie. So my number 8 is the or 7. I apologize. Number 7 is a movie that when it was announced, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's something. And then the trailers were everywhere. It was in front of every video. I'm I'm pretty sure it played in front of every single movie I saw that year. And I honestly did not pay it any mind until after it had uh, come out, and we were sitting here one day and was like, "Oh, it's." I think it was on HBO, and because of who was in it, we're like, I finally relented, and we're like, Amber and I was just like, "We'll watch it, fine." And honestly, I'm pretty sure if it didn't make my top 10 that list that year, it was on my honorable mentions, and it's 2022's Beast. Um, and it's essentially Idris Elba protecting his daughters from lions. Um, again, uh, it's what a lot of these movies are. These two lions find out that poachers have wiped out their whole pride, and so they go on a revenge spree and just start killing any humans they can find. And Idris Elba and his two daughters are visiting their friend that and are visiting like this lion kind of safari type thing and get attacked by this lion and are immobilized and have to survive in the African safari while being stalked and chased by these two lions. And it's really intense. Idris Elba is fantastic in it. It really goes for the terror of it. And it really consistently builds the dread. I mean, it's a chase movie. They're just trying to get away from these lions, and the lions are like always on their tail and popping up. Um, I'm amazed by how well this movie is made. And how good it is considering, like I said, when it came out, it was just like, oh, we're really doing this. All right, fine. And I was again just blown away by how good and effective it is as a
Another one I didn't get around to watching, but I heard it kind of came and went unceremoniously, but it looked promising and it looked like a good execution of a basic premise. Which, hey, that's about some of those make for the best animal attack movies. My number 6 harken back to the days of, "Hey, there are alligators in the sewers in New York City?" Well, somebody decided to take that and make an entire movie out of it. It's 1980's Alligator, starring the great late Robert Forster. So that's how the movie begins. Somebody has a pet alligator, they flush it down the toilet, winds up in the sewer, and this alligator munches on some animal carcasses that have been experimented on, pumped full of steroids, and grows big, really big. And it's up to this detective, played by Robert Forster, to stop the rampage of this gigantic alligator. It's an alligator rampaging through a city. At various points, it busts up to the sidewalk. People are like, "Oh man, that's not real. That's an urban legend." Right up until the moment this, 30 to 40-foot long alligator sneaks up behind them and eats them. This thing is amazingly stealthy for something that size. Uh, it's a big monster movie. It's a campy, good time. It works. I really actually think the practical effects in it are really good and entertaining. Robert Forster's great in the movie because he's a hell of an actor. He really should have got more roles as a leading man. Alligator's a basic, fun, good time about a giant monster on a rampage. So there's a sequel. Never seen it though.
So my number 6 uh is comes from two things. One is I remember being very young and there was a scene in a movie. I had never seen the whole movie. There was just a scene, an image of that scene of that movie in my head, all growing up. Just this image from a movie in my head. Cut to last year on the last drive-in. It was on the same episode where I saw the trailer for Day of the Animals. Um, it coincided with a 4K release of the movie, which I picked up afterwards. So they're showing this movie on Joe Bob, and I'm watching it, and it's fun. It's a cheesy, fun giant animal movie. And this scene happens, and it's the scene from my childhood. And the scene is of a wedding being attacked by a giant alligator because my number 6 also is Alligator from 1980. uh yeah, I was like, "Oh my god, we got one." This movie again, everything you said, this movie is great. The alligator looks great. I love Robert Forster. I love the fact that his whole subplot in this movie is people making fun of his receding, he's losing his hair. He's such a badass in this movie. You get Henry Silva playing this weird scuzzy mobster type. This movie rules. I've not seen the sequel either, but uh, I do. Right, I was just blown away, being like, "Oh my god, this is it! This is that scene that's been in my head for decades." Um, the 4K Scream Factory put out, it looks fantastic. The movie has never looked better. Uh, this is definitely one that I'm just like, do yourself a favor and watch this alligator movie because it is next level awesome, super fun. Nope, can't hear you. That's so funny. Yeah, as soon as you started talking about big alligator in the sewer, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be awesome. Uh, there's a scene of kids playing stickball in this night street. The alligator comes out. Oh man, it's so much fun. It honestly was probably one of the best episodes of Last Drive In last year. Uh, I mean, it is a giant animatronic alligator, but just chomping away on people and breaking through models of cities and stuff. And there's this awesome sewer set. Um, Oh, I've got things to say about PETA. You don't even want to know. It probably is it. I'm more of an ASPCA man myself, but that's because of my never-ending love of Sarah McLachlan. Are you there? So we'll have to once he's locked in, we'll have to ask. Still can't hear you. You'd be surprised how many alligator crocodile movies I stumbled across. It's like alligators and sharks are where it's at when it comes to these movies. Because there's also a shark movie that almost made my list, which is about people using sharks as that one Nick bitch where it's like a slash movie with sharks. But there's one where there's only one person who can stop evil sharks in a lake, and it's Dolph Lundgren, which I only assume ends with Dolph Lundgren punching a shark in the face. We'll see. We'll see if that. We'll see, Logan. Don't leave till after the show, though. But what do you guys want to talk about? What are some of your favorite animal movies? Again, like I was shocked by how many of these movies were made in the. It was like in the '90s we went from like, all right, animal movies, smart animals to, I don't know, The Matrix. Everybody, that's all we want to talk about. You there? Something made a noise. The Edge is great. You see, oh, he's playing a game. He's playing. He's see, that's commitment. He's he's dealing with animals while talking about animals. Is that what you do with your other secret Twitch family? Is you play Farmville? I still cannot hear what you're saying. Did the other mic die or what? No, I still cannot hear you. This may be how you do it down on the farm. This isn't how we do it here. I heard a noise. You there? Oh, he jumped out. Well, if I tell you everything on my list, Logan, then what's the point of doing the list? But probably. Oh, I hear you. I don't. Wait for it. There you are.
Yes, sorry about that, you all. Trying to resolve some of my audio problems, and in fact, I made it work and started playing a farm game for reasons. So, yes. Anyway, yes, I said we'll work on this and get it fixed for next time. I was just trying to make things a little better now, and that was a mistake.
So there's two theories right now in the chat. One is that it's PETA attacking us. Your audio's gone again.
My audio's gone again.
Oh nope, there it is. Never mind.
Yeah, I just wasn't talking.
Just got real quiet. Okay. Because there's a delay on the screen with the chat, so that's why. I was like, oh no. There's the conspiracy theory that this is PETA attacking us because we're talking about so many animals in a negative light. The other one is because you're secretly playing that farm game with your other family on Twitch. And you've been busted yet again. I will promise you that the movie Zoo about Mr. Hans is not on my list.
Uh, there is a movie about that, in case you didn't know.
Oh, yeah, it's called Zoo, the documentary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, dude,
spoilers. It did make the list.
um, talking about that particular thing might get us struck from the internet or nuked from the planet or something. Yeah, if you read the chat and want to look into it, you could do so at your own peril, because holy shit, does that story get bizarre and real dark real quick. Anywho, moving on to things that are a little less depressing and bizarre. My number 5 was quite the hit when it came out, and I believe it was 1995. Uh, Probably one of the bigger budget movies on my list. It's not a straight up horror movie. In fact, it's more of an action movie with some thriller elements in it. But if you want to talk about movies with lions attacking that are bona fide classic, it's The Ghost and the Darkness. The Ghost of the Darkness follows the story of this railroad engineer played by Val Kilmer who has to go oversee a railroad project in Africa around the turn of the century. This operation is under attack by two lions who the locals have named the Ghost in the Darkness, and they seem to be killing people just for the hell of it. So he teams up with a frankly crazy hunter, played by Michael Douglas, and they decided to go out on a mission to stop these lions. There's a lot of great tense scenes involving these lions attacking the encampment and these hunters trying to have a showdown with them and face them down, and it's great. It's a well shot movie, well acted. It's an amazing movie and a classic from that era. Probably, I'd say, looking at my list, maybe the objectively like critically best movie on the list, but it's a lot of fun. Peak Val Kilmer in it, who's just makes a great leading man, and I love The Ghost in the Darkness. I mean, I believe they actually shot it in Africa, and it's just an amazingly beautifully shot movie.
So my number 5 is a movie that I honestly didn't come to until recently. Um, and I was kind of upset I'd never seen it before. Um, because it ruled. Um, is 1984's Razorback. The first film from Russell Mulcahy, who I believe if you watch the not quite Hollywood documentary about exploitation, they call him the Ridley Scott Down Under, and he is, because this movie about a guy looking for his missing wife in the Australian outback with the help of this Captain Ahab character trying to hunt down a giant razorback pig. Uh, he films it like Blade Runner. Like, there are so many amazing, beautiful shots in this movie, including the opening where you see this farmhouse and you see this like supposed to be the moon. It's like the biggest spotlight you've ever seen shining through like one of those old windmills, and it's just when you just then you see the house with the light behind the windmill. Beautiful shots. Um, you have George Harrison, and his wife is a reporter. A lot of reporters. She goes to the Australian outback looking for kangaroo poachers, where she finds two honest to goodness Mad Max villains, uh, who basically kind of leave her to the pig, and so he has to go to Australia to try to find his wife. Bill Kerr plays this old man who the at one point in the night the pig crashed to his house and took his grandson. Everybody in this little village kind of believes he got away with murder because they believe he killed his grandson, so it's kind of ruined his life. So he's just madly hunting this giant boar. And when you finally do see the pig, it's huge, and it's this giant, awesome looking puppet. Uh, it holds up. Uh, the hunt stuff of it holds up. Again, there's just beautiful or cinematography going on. The climax in like this uh pet food making warehouse where they take the kangaroo and like chop it up for like pet food. That's what they sell it for is insane. And honestly, maybe one of the most beautiful looking movies on this list, especially when you take into again consideration it's a movie about a giant killer pig. This movie looks way better than it has any right to. It's filmed way better and it's so much fun. And you can kind of see why Russell Mulcahy kind of got the career he got off of this movie because I think immediately after this he did Highlander. That's my second Highlander tie-in this night tonight. But no, this is an absolute incredible Australian. They call it the Australian Jaws, and for good reason. It's it's amazing, and I cannot recommend it enough.
This is a movie I've been wanting to see for such a long time, but there are certain movies I have put off watching because it's like, man, I'm so excited to see this. It can't possibly hold up. And this is one I've worried about because I love the premise. I love the idea of Jaws on land. There are a lot of movies that kind of claim to be that, but I got to get around to watching Razorback. I I think this movie looks amazing. I remember hunting down the trailer online 20 some odd years ago and seeing a rough version of the trailer because it looks amazing. And I like Russell Mulcahy. Not the most even filmography, but the dude's got talent. My number four is harkens back to the atomic age. You know, we dropped the bomb on Japan. Right, we're entering in an era of nuclear power, and people were afraid of that because we didn't know what effect it could have on people and the environment. And with a looming threat of nuclear war, it was fresh in everybody's minds. What was used as a plot device a lot of the 1950s is what if bugs, animals, people got radiated and they became huge and aggressive? And to me, few movies did that better than Them from 1954. Them is simply about giant ants. There's giant ants out in the American Southwest, and people go to investigate them, find out some of the giant ants have gotten loose and head into a city. There's a lot of showdown with ants the size of buses. And let me tell you, considering what they had to work with at the time, I think it looks very impressive. It's intense, and the sound the ants make in the movie, it's just one. It'll haunt your dreams. It's great. It is one of the essential monster movies of the 50s, and my favorite animal attack movie of that era. Even though they're giant, they're still. And think of that. Think of an ant the size of a bus coming at you. It would be terrifying. And this movie terrified a lot of people when it came out. It's great. I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, to me, what always sticks out is the sound. Like it's just like this weird, like cricket high pitched wheel that's so terrifying coming from these giant, yeah, like you said, like bus sized ants. Um, Especially seeing it grow as somebody who grew up, with something like Honey I Shrunk the Kids. So you're like, hey, Auntie, and then you watch them and you're like, oh no, no, that is truly terrifying. uh, my number four is my Alexandra Aja movie. And what's cool about this movie is this may honestly have been the worst theatrical experience of my life. I went to go see this movie on a Sunday afternoon, and it was just myself and two elderly couples that sat across the aisle from me and talked, explaining the movie and all of its trailers to each other. Uh, the one I remember the most is the husbands and wives trying to explain to each other what was happening in the It Chapter 2 trailer because they hadn't seen It Chapter 1 because no shit, you're 80 years old, you haven't seen It Chapter 1. However, this movie is so intense and so well made that it's awesome. And I'm going to say awesome a lot. when I was getting this list together, I was trying to get Amber and Ashton to watch some with me. I only got them to watch one, and this is the one Amber watched, and I think she regrets it because she was on the edge of her seat the entire time because of how well the tension is in this. And it's 1999 or 1999, 2019's Crawl. This movie like came out of nowhere, and it was just like, oh, it's a girl and her dad, and they're trapped in a house during a hurricane, and there's gators. But the movie it ratchets up so much tension. It adds in this ticking clock because they're stuck in um the word just left me, under your house crawl space of the house.
Yes.
Um, with two alligators, and the flood waters from this hurricane are coming in. So we've got alligators, and we're gonna drown. Um, you get a amazing performance by this actress. Uh, Kaya. Probably shouldn't have started with her
I
name.
Scotolario. Man, that's a hard to pronounce last name.
Yeah.
Scotolario.
Yeah. And then every movie's better with a little Barry Pepper. He's fantastic in this as her dad. Again, this was a movie that I was rewatching it, even blown away by how effective and well it's made. That wouldn't be fair if we started. Well, yeah, okay, I'll come back to that after this. Because that wouldn't have been fair. But no, of all the alligator movies, I think this is the best because it does everything right in one of these movies because the tension is just ratcheted to 11. You're dealing with that. You're dealing with the storm. Especially after I think he did Piranha 3D, and then kind of didn't do anything. And this was kind of like his way back in the low budget horror. The 3D alligators look fantastic. It super goes for it with the gore. There's a scene where you get the classic alligator death roll, and it's horrifying. And again, to say that I love this movie as much as I did while hating myself and every octogenarian within a 10-mile radius because of those talking old people at that theater. I do highly recommend Crawl as an awesome movie.
Well, funny you should say that because my number 3 is also Crawl, making their 2 Alexandra Aja movies on this list. And yep, Logan, I told you, more gators incoming. Because Crawl is a great, simple movie. Girl goes to check on her dad because there's a hurricane incoming. They live on the coast. They get trapped. The flood waters are rising, and wait, there's alligators. You have people come in that are looters as cannon fodder for the alligators, and there's some truly intense scenes in the crawl space. I love the scene where you see the water rising outside of the window and you see the alligators swimming by. It is chilling. The whole movie is well done, beginning to end. One of the best animal attack movies of recent years. And it does so much so well, and it doesn't try to overextend or throw too much needless plot points in there. And it's anchored by some really great performances. I may not be able to pronounce this girl's last name, I think Scotolaro, but she is great. She really sells it as she is caught in this terrifying life or death situation. I'm kind of scared of the ocean. I'm scared of murky water and the idea of being caught in this house while these giant dinosaur-like creatures, because alligators are basically dinosaurs that still exist. Waiting outside for me sounds terrifying. This movie creeped me out in the best of ways, and Crawl is wonderful.
I'm sorry, Logan, but I will have to say, if we had limited ourselves on only one of a certain animal per list, we probably could have, but we've been scraping the bottom of the barrel. Especially if you want like these are great movies. I don't know why there aren't any more crocodile movies.
This is America.
Well, this one, to be fair, it takes place in Florida. So the girl she's on the swim team of Florida University, so she is a Florida Gator. Uh, so there's your one joke in the movie. But yeah, it's an hour and like 40 minutes. The movie does not stop from the beginning. Honestly, it's one of the most intense of these movies you can find.
Yes.
All right, my number 3 is one that kind of immediately like wrote down on this list when we talked about it. Because this as a book shouldn't have worked as well as it does. As a movie, it shouldn't have worked as well as it does. And yet it may be one of the best overlooked and scariest Stephen King adaptations. It's 1983's Cujo. Louis Teague, who also directed Alligator, so we got two. We have two Ajas. There's also two Louis Teague movies on this list. So give them all the animal movies. You know the story of Cujo, friendly neighborhood dog, and the movie is played by Saint Bernard. It's bitten on the nose by a rabid bat. Comes rabid and terrorizes poor D. Wallace and that kid from Who's the Boss. They are both absolutely fantastic. This movie, the way it's shot, because they're trapped in this car. It's super hot. They can't get out. They're baking inside of it. This little boy's having seizures. Like you can taste the sweat in this movie the way it's filmed. It's so gross and horrifying, and like what happens to Cujo is so sad, and yet he's this almost otherworldly being in this movie by the end. Again, like I said, when you like, oh, it's a book about a killer dog, a scary dog, and we're gonna turn that one into a movie, and on both fronts, it's fantastic. My only complaint is that the movie doesn't quite go as far as the book does, but in the '80s you couldn't do that. But if you're whether you're into Stephen King or not, I recommend the book for sure. He just published a short story book where he has a sequel called Rattlesnakes. I haven't got to read it yet. But then also, if you want like a good Stephen King movie that's not the same old Harry Shining, Langoliers, because we all know how much we all revere that one. Watch Cujo because it really is an underrated, fantastic adaptation.
It's a movie that's very much feels a lot more based in reality more than any other Stephen King property you're gonna run into. I've not watched it since we watched it in high school. It's been that long. Uh, I, it's one of those. Most of the movie takes place in one area with them trapped in a Fort Pinto, while this rabid Saint Bernard paces around outside trying to get in and slowly tearing the car apart. Um, it's not a very fast-paced movie, but it's a very intense movie that feels terrifying. I love the idea of movies set somewhere where you're really close to help, but it's just out of reach, and it nails it. I've heard the book's even greater. So that's one I should listen to at work as an audiobook at some point to get the full experience. And yeah, I know how far the book goes, and yeah, they went pretty far in the movie, but they pulled those last few punches. Well, I grappled with whether or not to put my number 2 on the list because we talked about it so recently. I ultimately decided that I had to just because of how fond I am of this movie. A few months ago, we did a episode about strange Jeff Bridges movies. And in that movie, we reviewed movie containing one of Jason's personal favorite subject matter, spiders. That movie, of course, being Arachnophobia from 1990. If you want a full breakdown of our opinion of that movie, you can go back and watch that episode. I think it's one of the best family-friendly horror movies ever made. It's thrilling, it's intense. If you hate spiders, you will probably hate this movie because it is so creepy. So many scenes of actual spiders crawling, sometimes crawling out of people, but it's great. It's such a fun movie, and Jeff Daniels as this doctor who's has arachnophobia is just fantastic. Arachnophobia is a classic of this genre and one of the essential movies in this genre. If you can handle spiders, you need to watch Arachnophobia. Uh, they're remaking Arachnophobia. That's a terrible idea. Leave it alone.
Yeah, it's fine.
Basing that apparently according to Logan, that's what they're doing. Yeah, no, hard pass.
There's been talk of that. And then there was that one, and there was another one. I don't know if it's come out or not, where they were making a killer spider movie and using all practical spiders, and that movie can rot in hell. Um, but yeah, that's if I'm. We did watch Arachnophobia. I did watch it like a big boy. And so I'm proud of that, and I don't need to say anything else about it. My number two, uh, honestly, kind of bounced back and forth between my number one. Was my number one until I remembered my number one. It was like, oh no, this is clearly number one. Um, because I am a fan of lots and lots and lots of nonstop alligator movies. No, I'm just kidding, Logan. Um, this is a movie. This movie is encapsulates everything I want out of this genre. It's why I love movies like uh well, so we can all agree there's one great shark movie. And we can't redo Jaws. You can't redo it. You can't redo it. They tried 3 times. Even with Michael Caine's help, they couldn't do it. So what I want from a shark movie is I want to have as much fun and carnage as possible. That's why I think those movies like The Meg do so well. But before The Meg, there was this one again in 1999, the year of animal attack movies, Deep Blue Sea. Because this movie is probably my second all-time favorite shark movie. It's so much fun. It's dumb as dirt, but it's like 1990s peak Rennie Harlan. Just sit back and let him action the shit out of the movie. You know, stuff like Cliffhanger and The Long Kiss Goodnight. He was the man for it. You got Thomas Jane and Saffron Burrows fighting super smart sharks. You have one of the greatest unintentionally hilarious um, jump scares of a movie ever, and will never be topped. Um, if you are somebody who watched The Sopranos like I did, you finally get justice against Janice Soprano, and you get LL Cool J playing like 4 characters in this movie because he's playing LL Cool J, which is a character. He's also a chef. He's super religious, and he's a parrot man. And he has a rap song where he talks about his hat's like a shark fin. Um, and there's nothing more I can tell you. This Deep Blue Sea is awesome. I know there's like 2 more, whatever. I've never seen those. Deep Blue Sea is one of the best animal movies of the 90s, and again, behind the shark movie, it is my favorite all-time shark movie.
There's the classic moment in this movie that comes out of left field, and it happens. It's so jarring. It makes the whole movie worth watching. Deep Blue Sea is a very fun shark movie. Um, yeah, you're gonna look at it and be like, "Oh man, 90s CGI." Oh, if you can
Doesn't
get
matter.
past that, it's so much fun. It seemed like the people who made it had a lot of fun. It's worth it for that scene alone, where it just takes your breath away. And if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's great.
The scene where a shark uses Stellan Skarsgård strapped to a gurney as a missile to crack glass of an underwater sea lab is just mwah, chef's kiss. You're not getting better
Beautiful.
than that.
So one thing I love about being a movie enthusiast, and I also love about doing this and having done my podcast in the past, is I like being able to introduce underappreciated movies to people and shine light on them. My history with my number one goes back a ways. Uh, to a friend of mine, our friend Shaw, suggesting this movie to us. And I set about hunting it down. And I wasn't prepared for how much I would love this movie. It's quite a bit different than the other movies on my list, but it is about one pissed off animal versus one very pissed off homeowner. And the homeowner is played by none other than Peter Weller, aka Robocop, in the movie Of Unknown Origin from 1983. Peter Weller plays a white collar guy whose wife and daughter are away on vacation, so he has his beautiful Brooklyn brownstone house to himself. The problem is he has a rat problem, a very big rat problem. This movie is Peter Weller, who's going increasingly crazy versus a giant rat. And not like something the size of a dog, but something, this rat's like huge by rat standards. Something maybe cat sized. And it's smart as hell. And his efforts to combat this rat keep going wrong and keep on blowing up in his face. And he keeps on getting more and more obsessed with fighting this rat. And it culminates in a battle for the ages where it's like one of them's going to walk out of there and one of them's not. It's either him or the rat. There's also some pretty effective scenes where Peter Weller's talking about the history of rats because he's just become obsessed with this subject, and a nightmare scene that'll really stick with you. If go watch any movie from this list, go watch Of Unknown Origin. It is so worth tracking down. I'm not sure where you can stream it at. It's probably on Amazon, but it is a classic and it is actually surprisingly funny while also being very suspenseful. It's an awesome movie that I cannot say enough good things about. And man, is this one waiting to be rediscovered and get a massive cult following.
I have not seen it in decades now at this point, but it reminded me of it's kind of in the same vein as arachnophobia. But if spiders are too small for you and rats are too small for you, there's another movie that's this exact same movie that has Timothy Busfield in it called I think it's called Strays. And it's about
Yes, Strays.
his house being attacked by feral stray cats. They're not alligator cats, they're just regular old cats.
Yeah, House Cats.
Yeah.
I remember that showed up. I believe it was like a USA original movie. I remember when they were pushing that movie hard back in the 90s. It's like Strays. And you see all these adorable house cats running around. I got around to watching it a long time ago. It is the least scary horror movie ever. They do nothing but make these cats look adorable, and they're bouncing around and occasionally hissing, and it doesn't work as a horror movie, but Strays it's entertaining nonetheless. But if you need a good rat movie, my God, watch Of Unknown Origin.
And this is a tangent before we get to my number one, but honestly, that should be an episode as well. We talk about those USA movies of the '90s. There are some wild titles. Because as soon as you said USA movie, all I could think about was like Cabin by the Lake and The Paperboy.
Oh yes.
Both of which need to be talked about in the year of our Lord, like now, because they're both forgotten, but we need to talk about them. So my number
I am
one,
so down.
and I promise, Logan, this was my number one before you said anything. This movie holds a special place in my heart. I was 11 when this movie came out, and I didn't like. Unlike Nick, my dad showed me probably inappropriately a lot of R-rated movies way too young. But the first R-rated movie he ever took me to the theater to see was 1996's The Ghost in the Darkness. I adore this movie. I think bar none, it's Val Kilmer's best movie. He's fantastic. Michael Douglas is phenomenal in this movie. Um, there's a scene. The stuff with the lions is fantastic. The way it's edited, the brutality of it, and just these two guys being like, "We got that train's got to get done." So you two yahoos go hunt these lions. Uh, there's a dream sequence in this movie that I won't spoil for you if you haven't seen it, but we will audibly gasp out loud when you watch it.
Oh man. Oh man, it is rough.
I was sitting here. I was like, "Well, Deep Blue Sea will be my favorite because, haha, I love Dumb Shark Movie." And then I was looking through it. I was like, "Oh my god, The Ghost in the Darkness. That's number one. Oh, no, that's number one." Um, it's so good. It's so good. Even to the point where, yeah, a movie like Beast, when that came out, my first thought was, "Oh, it's Ghost in the Darkness." No, but and then we were watching one of the Yellowstone prequels, and there's like an episode and a half of one of those that is essentially one of those characters being in Ghost of the Darkness because he's got to go hunt
Yep.
killer lions. And I was like, yes, Ghost of the Darkness. This movie is fantastic. And you don't get movies like this either because I mean it is based in history and true. Uh oh, I'll address that in a minute. But man, they just made this movie so balls out, fun, and action packed, and so intense. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you just I noticed earlier you just brushed right past it when I said The Ghost of the Darkness, so I was pretty sure I knew this was coming. Yeah, just a masterfully made movie, and I agree, one of Val Kilmer's best, and a really kind of like manic performance by Michael Douglas as well. And yes, based on a true story, the Man-Eaters of Savo, pair of lions who killed a lot of people before they were stopped. And those lions are actually they killed them, stuffed them, and you can go see them today at the Smithsonian. But a wild story and a classic from the mid '90s. And yes, there were some movies, maybe
Uh,
especially us. We're both pushing 40. Logan's mentioning some movies like Anaconda, like Congo, that I remember liking back in the day. I know Anaconda doesn't really hold up as much. Not that it isn't a fun watch, but didn't make my list.
so Anaconda, you don't watch for the snake, you watch for that terrible whatever Jean Voight is doing in that movie. Um,
It is the most one of the most baffling performances in a movie. What
Con-
was he going for?
Congo, I genuinely love. I know it's not good. Um, but growing up and when my room was in the back of our house, I had a little black and white TV, and I would just play, and I would pop in a movie and just play. And the two movies I watched the most on that black and white TV while playing were Waterworld and Congo. I didn't see those movies in color until DVD. They were just on this old little black and white 13-inch television I had. So I have an affinity for Congo. Brotherhood of the Wolf, I didn't even think about, and now that you've brought it up and knowing the reveal of that movie, I'm kind of mad I didn't bring it up because I love Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Okay, what creature well, spoiler though, would that fit in with our parameters? That's the question.
So the way I read that movie is that creature, while dossied up the way it is, underneath is just an animal that we've talked about a few times on this list. In fact, very recently, in fact, just freaking people out because that animal is usually in a hotter climate than in the rolling hills of France. That's what I take from it. Is on a hunting trip in a desert like location, they bring back a large uh feline like creature and then give it like a RoboCop outfit.
I, I thought they were vague enough with it, well, trying to give too much away, that it was a matter of question as to what exactly it was, a creature based in reality or not. So I don't know.
To me,
Whatever the
it's
case,
not till when you see the eye of it there at the very end, you go, "That okay, I know what that looks like. What that creature."
bro, I admittedly I've not seen Brotherhood of the Wolf in 18, 19 years or so. It's a great movie. It is a fantastic mashup of genres. Great movie.
I will say the grade wouldn't make my list because that movie promised me Liam Neeson fist fighting wolves, and he doesn't.
Yeah, another one. I know another one that Travis, my friend Travis mentioned was The Edge, which one I haven't revisited recently enough to really comment on, but uh, I remember liking it pretty well when I watched it, and I just didn't have enough time to get around to rewatching some of these to have for inclusion on the list, and that was one of them.
But yeah, that is number one. Our number one. So that's our top 10 list. Uh, next month, I'll go ahead and tease it now. Uh, Logan, you might want to sit this one out because we're doing our top 10 alligator movies. No. um, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We Matt, don't take the bait, the gator bait. Um, that's terrible. There's your dad joke. Um, no, this was fun. Like I said, this was one that kind of came up and was like, oh yeah, let's do animal attack movies, and then realizing that, oh, I kind of love this genre of movies.
It was great. It was a lot of fun, and I've added several more movies to my list of movies that I need to watch in this genre, including Killer Crocodile, Razorback. That it's like I'm gonna make the time and go back and watch. But we can both
Eating
agree that
alive, gator bait, all those great alligator movies.
yes, we can both agree it's like watch Crawl, watch Alligator, watch The Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah.
Those all three of those showed up on our list, and all three of them pretty great.
So
You can
I
never get enough of alligator movies.
oh no. Well, it's kind of the best. It may be best animal. I don't know. Oldest animal. You know, I don't know what they're doing for the third Meg movie, but I'm pretty sure one of those movies there's a giant alligator. So let's do it.
About has to be.
Because yeah, those movies those the epitome of those movies are dumb. But oh my, just the idea of like, oh, Jason Statham is fist fighting a giant prehistoric shark. Side me up. But now that's gonna do it for our animal talk. Next month live, I promise you, the only animals we're talking about are the animals that inhabit the blackboard jungle because we are going back to school, and that's how you do a segue. We are going back to school. We are going to be reviewing 6 uh classic uh school related movies in the horror, sci-fi, and action genre. No spoilers on what the movies are, but let me tell you, you're gonna have a lot of fun because I know we're gonna have a lot of fun watching them and then talking about them. So next month is back to school over here at our Twitch channel. because while we're going back to school here on our YouTube channel, the whole month of August is our summer block party. Second year in a row we've done it. And this year is exciting because it's themed. So it's a themed theme month. And we're taking a little Italian vacation. So through the month of August, we are going to be talking about 4 wild and weird Italian horror movies. There's Lovecraftian church beasts. There's a weird 90s Argento movie. You've got what is essentially Evil Dead in a movie theater. And honestly, one of the wildest Italian movies I've ever seen that just got a beautiful 4K release. That is kind of the basis for a comic book character called Dylan Dog. That is a movie that I want to talk about at some point as a defender of. For the most part, I may need to rewatch it before I decide to fall on that sword. But no, August is going to be a lot of fun, and then September, for the YouTube channel, we're going back to kind of catch up what we missed in August, and then for us, September is going to be a lot of fun because there's a movie that's coming out at the end of August that I'm not for certain, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have some strong opinions about. And so we're going to look at that whole franchise with The Crow. So we're going to be talking all of the Crow movies, including reviewing the newest one. And I even plan on trying to check out that TV show. So stay tuned for those 2 months. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then that's kind of it. But I wanted to talk to you, Nick, because we've had so many movies come out and we haven't had a chance to talk about them. And I know that 2 of them, I was very, very interested in your opinion. I did my reviews for them up on our YouTube channel, but I kind of wanted to get your take. Did you, in fact, ever get around to seeing both Maxine and Longlegs?
So I was supposed to go see Maxine this weekend. It had a surprisingly short theatrical run here. I was not feeling well, so I did not get around to seeing it. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait till it's streaming to see it, which really bummed me out. But I couldn't drag my sick ass to the movie theater to see it, and I hate that I missed that. However, I did go see Longlegs last week, and that's a really stupid ass movie. I did not like it at all. You had a Nicolas Cage performance that was more laughable than anything. And it's just, I, c- man, I did not care for it. It's like it's trying to go for that kind of 90s thriller feel, and I just don't think it works even a little. In my opinion, I did not care for it. I went to see with a friend. He liked it a lot better than I did. I Yeah, I didn't. I don't think that movie worked at all.
Nick, we gotta stop meeting like this, brother. Um, so
That
part
is
of
a
it.
goofy movie,
So I
and
went in.
it is just it is so devoid of thrills, aside from a few music jumps.
So here's the thing, and that's kind of why I brought it up. Was something that we talked about. I went with a friend here to go see it, and we both really liked it. But I think, and I knew that after I saw it, I was like, Nick is either going to love this movie or he is going to hate this movie. And I think some of that is going to deal thinking back about some of the other movies where you and I were on opposite ends of, especially in the horror genre, has to do a lot with how the movie's sold. Because this movie is sold as like this is the scariest movie of its kind since Silence of the Lambs. And it's not at all. It does not anywhere near scratch the surface of Silence of the Lambs. But going into this movie, I just was not on the edge of my seat, but did not know where we were going. And because Oz Perkins is hit or miss for me. I love The Black Coat's Daughter. I didn't like the movie he did on Netflix that much. I loved Gretel and Hansel. I know I was one of the few who did.
I enjoyed that too.
So, but I think, to me, this movie, it's an okay, at best, serial killer cop movie until it turns. When it does turn, I won't spoil it. When it makes that turn, I was all in because, like, oh shit, okay, we're doing this. I'm a Nicolas Cage apologist. I love him in everything, even the worst movies he's in. Him as this terrifying, androgynous, like hair metal singer, um, is utterly terrifying. And that again, that this movie isn't scary. That's what I want to get to. It's not scary, but what it does with dread, I think, is great, and the slow burn of it all. But because we can't sell that on the internet, it has to be the scariest movie since. That's kind of what it was. Tristan at the time and I were talking. It's like, that's what kills most of these movies. As I get up on here on my soapbox, the scariest movie in the world for you is not the scariest movie in the world for me. We can't agree on that. I'm just look at, as Nick and I, like I said, we're almost 40 years old. We've been watching movies together most of our lives. We've seen movies that have utterly terrified us. We've seen movies that are considered some of the scariest movies of all time and laughed our way through them. A movie like Arachnophobia is terrifying to me, whereas it's a comedy. A movie like The Exorcist, as somebody who doesn't believe in demon possession, is not that scary. Something like The Strangers, that's scary. So what I'm sick of, whether or not you like this movie or Maxine, because I think Maxine was getting that buzz too. Like, I think a lot of people went to the movie expecting it to be like X turned to 11, and it's not. Is that when we have to stop doing it's the scariest movie since blah? Because what's the scariest movie for you since blah is not the scariest movie for me since blah. And I think that is turning a lot of people off. And the internet hype is disgusting. I know that's I'm not saying it's what happened with this movie, but I know we talked about Talk to Me and Barbarian. The internet hype can ruin a movie for somebody. Whereas you would go into a movie more forgiving of it because of that internet hype. It's like even more of a disappointment. So yeah, I was just curious, and I knew when I asked, I was like, he's either gonna love it, he's gonna absolutely tear it to shreds, hate it. So I just had to know how you felt about it. But that was my soapbox moment.
I went in very blind on it. Yeah, I had heard it's the scariest movie. I pay that no heed whatsoever. I don't pay attention to that at all. I heard it's supposed to have to do with a killer, and there might be a supernatural slant to it. I really went in blind, and I didn't like the main character. I think the whole movie hinges on a really well unhinged Nicolas Cage performance, and to me, you gotta have more than just that. I appreciate a good unhinged Nicolas Cage performance in a ton of his movies. It can really enhance a movie. Love Nicolas Cage. Um, there just isn't really enough going on between that, and I don't know, it didn't work as a thriller, and it didn't work for me at all.
That's fair. But like I said, I was just curious because even sitting there watching it, when certain things would happen, I would go, okay, I'm gonna ask. Nick said he was gonna see it. Okay, he's either with this like I am, or he is shut and locked the door, and there ain't no going back. But I am curious to see what you think of Maxine. Again, like, that's not a spoiler, but I think a lot of the people who did hate Maxine wanted another X, and X is very different from Pearl, and Pearl is very different from Maxine. This is a whole different genre. I loved Maxine. Both of these movies are in my top 10 right now. So once again, there will be a movie that we talk about in January. More than likely, will both be on our list, but on opposite lists. But that's okay, because that's what makes it fun. And notice I didn't throw us under the bus by saying what classic, well-regarded horror movie we giggled through in high school, because I don't want to. You don't want to upset the internet.
Yeah. Oh, I need to wrap up the evening. I gotta get to bed and head to work in the morning. But I enjoy doing this list a lot. Brought up a lot of good memories, revisited a lot, and I had a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to some of the movies we're watching for next month.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're not going to tell you what we're watching next month. Just know we're reviewing 6 movies. They're all school. They're all based in school, sci-fi, horror, and action. It's going to be an absolute blast. Not unlike the blast that apparently just happened in your chair out of spite in the comments. So yes, until next time, don't forget tomorrow, new episode, new review up. I won't spoil what that is either, but know that it is a movie that, much like your spitefulness of what happened there, Logan, this is a movie I watched out of spite, and boy did it deliver. So tune in tomorrow at 4:00 over on YouTube at the Movie-Club Emporium to see my review of that movie. Until next time, we will see you guys later.
Here y'all.
Bye.
Bye, pal.